Hello guys, welcome back to my Cypress automation class from zero to hero. And in this lesson, we will learn how to intercept the browser request and how to provide mock or stub response for this request. So let's go back to our application and hit the refresh page. We will use this scenario. So as you see, when our application is loading, we have the tags endpoint is this one, API/tags, and the response for this endpoint is the list of the tags. And I believe this is the tags which are loaded into this box on the right side of our browser. So let's mock this response and put our own tag list which we want. So first of all, let's take this response and put it into the new JSON file so it will be more comfortable for us to work with this file. The best place to keep the JSON files for the mock responses is the Fixtures folder in the Cypress. So let's create a new file, called it text.json, and we will paste our response which we got from the browser. Let's format it real quick, and this is the look of our object. If you see, so this is the bot test, dragons training. This is exactly as the tags names for our object. Let's remove all these names, and for example, let's keep just 3 of them, and we will modify this object to like Cypress automation testing. If we will intercept the current API request and provide this object as a response, the result of that we should see in the browser 3 tags over here with the name Cypress, automation, and testing. Alright, so we created the JSON file with the desired response. Now, how to provide this response to Cypress? It is actually very simple. So this page is the first one which is loading during the app. So one more time, if I go to the 4200, after login, this is the one of the first tags which are called. So we want to make the routing before we log into our application. So in this case, before each method. So let's do this. We need to create cy.server, and we have to make cy.route, and let's see in our tags. So when our application making get request to the tags endpoint, let's do this. When we make a get request to tags endpoint, we want to provide the response, and this is the third parameter in the route method. We want to provide the response of our tags object.json, and it is located in the fixture folder. So we put just fixtures tags.json. That's it. So we created the routing. Now let's verify how is everything working. Let's create a new test for that. Okay, and let's check our object. So popular tags, and we have classed tag list over here. So cy.get, we take class tag list, and this class should contain Cypress and contain automation and contain, what was the third one? Testing. Okay, let's skip the previous test, so we will run only this one. Alright, that's it. Let's try to run this test. Okay, something went wrong over here. I see that it has stub expected to contain Cypress, but it actually didn't load the content. Okay, so let's check over here. Okay, I did a misspell. Instead of fixtures, you have to write fixture colon text.json. All right, and let me make it bigger. As you see, our application loaded our three objects as expected: Cypress, automation, and testing. And if we go to our test made the verification that it should contain automation and testing. Okay, we're missing, okay, and we have to contain Cypress, automation, testing. So it is fine. So as you see, it is pretty simple to provide the mock response for the certain API request. You just put your request in the JSON files, and inside that route provide the name for this JSON file, which we put over here. All right, let's make one more example with more complicated scenario. So let's go to our global feed, and in our global feed we have a long list of the articles, right? So let's say we want to verify that the likes for this article works fine, that when you click on this article, the numbers change into 1 and it become favored or not. But we actually don't need the real API response from the server to get the article's results. So we can mock the response. Let me go over here, clear. So first of all, let's inspect the behavior of our backend. What endpoint Cypress is calling for each of these tabs. So when we click on your feed, we don't have any articles over here, and the response API is API articles feed ? And then the parameters for the request, and the response is like empty object. Articles is 0 and articles count is 0. And when we click on the global feed, we have a different response. Let me remove this. So when I click on the global feed, okay, we have articles, and we have a different endpoint, which is API articles ? And limit with parameters, and the response is this one. So since we want to return this response, let's copy this object and create a new fixture for this object, and we will call it articles. Okay, this is our object. As you see, it's much bigger than the previous one. Let's look into this. So we have articles. This is array, and this is array of object. In each object, this is our article. Article number 1, number 2, and so on. So for our test, we need just, let's say, 2 articles will be enough for us. So we can delete the rest of the articles in this array. Delete, and we need to delete this comma. Okay, this will be our mock response for our test. The next thing, let's go over here, and I think we also will need this one, the second object for this API, but I guess we will just copy this response and paste it right into the parameter of our routing. Okay, I guess let's start writing a new test and we'll see what happens. So the first thing we want to do is to create the route for our articles list. cy.route, and this is get request for, let's see, the articles is API articles. And the response for this request will be fixture articles.json. Okay, and we probably need to create the second route for the feed, which is API articles feed, is this one. So let's copy this. Articles feed, and for this request we want to provide this response. Instead of file, we will just provide a JSON object right here. Our routes are ready. Now what we need to do is when you open home page, we have to select global feed, so this list with articles will be loaded. Let's do this. Cy contains global feed dot click. Okay, and let's run this test, and we have to verify that our mocks are loaded just fine. Was the first test, this is the second test. Okay, looks like it is just fine. We have just 2 articles loaded to our page, and yeah, let's modify the count for number of likes in our response. This is our articles. This is the number of likes. Let's change 1 to 5, and let's change this one from 0 to 1. Go back to our test. Restart it. Yeah, and as you see, now the first article has 1 like, the second article has 5 likes. Okay, sounds good. Now, for example, let's make the assertion for these likes. Let's see, inspect console elements. So we will need to find this button for the app article list. I think so. Yeah, this is the list of our items, item number 1, 2, 3, and we will need to find this button. This button should contain a number of likes. Okay, let's do this. And we expect that list of buttons 0 to contain 1 like, and list of buttons with index 1 should contain 5. Yeah, well, let's quickly run this to verify assertion. All right, so it is working just fine. Now let's create more complicated flow. So go back to our networking, clearing this. Let's say we want to verify that when I click on this like, the count should be increased from 1 to 2. And let's see what's happening in our browser when we click on this button. So I click 1, and our application sending some request for the endpoint. This is post request with API articles. Then we see some interesting link, new article with certain index, and then favorite. And once we send the post request with empty body, you see that it's empty response. The response is our article with updated number of likes. Where is that? Favorites count equals to 2. So now let's mock this kind of functionality as well. When we click on this button, we want to return object which contain the article with updated number of the counts. Let's do this. And if you look on this object, let me copy this object. And I create a new file. If you will look into this object and compare with existing object, so it is pretty much the same. The only one difference that in the object response after clicking the heart button, we return just 1 article, but format of the response is pretty much the same as this one. So we probably don't want to create another JSON file over here and provide this file as a response. We can just modify the existing object and provide the response with object modified. Also, look at this string. So this slug key, and this is the link to our created article. And we have to use this link as a part of our response here. API articles, then we use this link and then favorite. So we can get this link from our fixture file, made it as a part of the link which Cypress will listen to, and then provide the response. In order to get access to the fixture file, Cypress has a method cy.fixture, and we just have to provide the name of our fixture file we want to work with is articles. Then file. And what we want to do, we want to get this file. Then let me close this guy. We want to click on the second article, so we will need to get this link, and this link is a part of articles. We need to get the second element from the articles and get this slug key. Let's go back, file, articles. We are getting second element, so it's number 1 and slug. And let's save this link into some variable. Okay, we save that. Now we can do what? We can create cy.route, and we want to listen on this post request with this URL, and we need to modify this URL. So we're doing post, and URL is articles. Then we need to put this value from our JSON file, and we add plus article link plus and favorite. Okay. And as a response, we want to provide our articles object as well. Okay, so we created our route. Now let's just click on our button. So cy.get button. Okay, let's run our test. Articles is not defined, so I made some mistake. Okay, the mistake is that we use the articles which is not defined. We have to use file instead as our response. So let's go back. All right, everything is working fine. And just one more step left. Let's just add assertion at the end that our button should contain 6 because it will have more likes than before. Previously we had a value 5, now we will have a value 6. And let's look over here, and it's perfectly fine. Our assertion is passed. And one more thing I want to pay your attention. So if you look into the Cypress runner on the left, you will see the definition as XHR stub. And here is XHR. So XHR means that our web browser did the request to the backend server and our request was not mocked. So this request hit the backend. And the XHR stub, it means that we stub the response for these API calls. So in this example, API tags or articles feed or articles limit and so on, and or articles new article. And scroll up here on the routes. Here is the list of the routes which we created. We created 4 get routes and 1 post route. All of them were stubbed, and number 1 on each of them means that each of these routes was hit 1 time. For example, if I will go back to your feed, now you see that feed endpoint was hit by our application and 1 changed to 2. And in the end of the list, you will see that XHR stub was triggered. When I click on the global feed again, our 2 articles loaded again, and we see that articles number 2. So it's very convenient to make a debugging and to understand the sequence of the call your browser is doing. So in the one view, you have a pretty good understanding what is going after what. So cy contains, then you see it's triggered some API calls, then click, then we got some web element made an assertion, click again, then it triggered another stub call, and we made an assertion. So it's pretty cool thing to know. All right. Let's go back and quickly summarize what we did in this lesson. So we learned how to make the stubbing or mocking using the Cypress. It is pretty simple. As a third parameter to our route method is your response you want to provide to your API request. It either can be a response by itself, or you can provide the JSON file if your response is pretty big. And the good place to keep your JSON files is a fixture folder in the Cypress. So this folder is specially created to keep your JSON files as a response. And it is very easy to call these files using fixture, colon, and the name of this file. And also in this lesson, we learned cy.fixture method to read our fixture files and get some information from this fixture file. For example, we took our link, which will be used as a next call for the post request, which we wanted to create a route for, and we provided the same fixture file as a response for this route. And we did the assertion that count increased to 6. So this particular test is completely mocked, and the benefit of it that will be very reliable and very fast. Now we are not dependent on the response from the backend server, and we have a full control of our test data. Alright guys, that's it, and see you in the next lesson.